Hey, I thought we'd spend a little bit of time trying to figure out how to freehand a circle or a particular shape. And I hope you can see this fairly well because I start in pencil and it's kind of hard to see. And if you can't, I think I might just practice with our little micron pen. But first, if you want to draw something like this triangle here first for the ice cream cone, we need to kind of space it out visually before you just start drawing. And I usually draw like a little dot here, here, and a point here. It helps you size it according to the paper that you're on. And then from there, you just can do the little scallops and then a circle. But even on the circle, I use dots. So let me show you just a little bit of how I do that. I do it really light initially, but I think I'm going to do it a little bit more strong for you so you can see it on camera. But let's say I have the ice cream cone. I want it about that big, and I think it should probably extend to about here, and I'm just going to put one scoop on it. These would be very lightly drawn, but for you, I will make a stronger line, and then I'm not going to draw across here because the scallop of the ice cream is going to be there. So I'll just do like a loop, and sometimes I'll just go over this dot that I drew, and then just scallop across. Try to cross that if you have to. Now I have to do the cone, the top part of the ice cream, and let's say I want it to go about that high. Put a little mark. But it has to be round. So if I were to just freehand it, it would invariably be not a clean circle like a scoop would be. So I just kind of draw out little dimensions like that, little guidelines. And that looks pretty round to me. And then sometimes I have to connect it a little bit more, depending on how big the circle is, but that looks pretty good to me. So then I just connect the lines. And like I said, normally I would do this with a pencil very lightly, and then go with the, I like the thick one, the thick 8 micron. A 5 would be, an 05 would be good too. And then that way, what you see mostly is the black line. And then just trace over it. You have a real good guide, and everything's in proportion here. And then, of course, I don't need guides for these. I usually just do a very whimsical mark on the cone. And then a few little lines to accentuate the curve of the cone. And then after that, I would watercolor this. This is not watercolor paper, this is just sketching paper. But this is how you would draw a cone. Now let's go through this, something that requires a circle. A star is a real good example of connecting lines and putting the dots out first. This was a good example with the little acorn. I would start with a line and say, oh, I think I want an acorn about like that. And then the tip of the acorn will be about here. And then they usually kind of come down like this, and then they kind of angle in at the tip. And that looks pretty good. So what kind of top would fit? The cap of it is usually, and this is my book of templates, so to speak, and so I kind of refer back to this because this looks like an acorn to me, kind of a whimsical, colorful watercolor acorn, and so I would duplicate that and just keep it off here to see, and then I think I would just fiddle with this. And the nice thing is with really light little lines, and I think this is just a little too tall. I think the cap needs to come down a little bit more like this. And I just erase and redraw until I like it. I still don't like it, so let's see why I'm not duplicating this. I think one reason is it goes up and arcs a little bit more. That looks a little bit better because I could just see the tip coming off like that. And then the little lines, and so then just fill it in a little bit fuller. And I would be doing this again with my little micron pen. And then just add a little curve here, a little curve there. And I think this point here might be a little bit off. Actually, this curve's what's a little bit off. And there, you got an acorn. And if this was on my watercolor paper, I would just watercolor it in. Now let's just say you want to do just a circle. Just start with a circle. Let's say we want to do a sun. Pick your size. This would be the top. And let's say we want to do a fairly big circle that you wouldn't be able to just draw because they're just always asymmetrical. And then I just kind of start eyeballing it and seeing if it looks like a circle. And there's my there's my lines. That looks pretty good. And then I can just lightly fill it in. And then this is a little lopsided, but when I go to draw it, I'll know that, and I can just compensate. Either I can, where'd my 8 go? Oh. Once I start to draw it, I can just compensate and come out a little bit because I have the visual to know that that's not perfect. And so I'll just come out a little bit. So first time, there's my circle. And then we just draw some rays that come out. If I were to do this freehand, my sun would be anything but symmetrical. And you can do this with any shape too. So let's just have a little whimsical sun. Okay, now say we want to do some other shapes that we did the triangle. Oh, these are hard to do, these little cups. And I love doing them. I love doing them. They take a lot of practice, but I usually just start out with a line. This is the top of the cup, and then the bottom of the teacup. They're usually about that high, but the bottom is smaller. So I just kind of just start working my way down, and there's so many different shapes of cups. Okay, so that line doesn't look right. This one's out a little bit too far. There, that looks pretty good. And then just lightly draw. And then here's a little rim, the back side of the cup. And then the saucer for me is just the toughest thing in the world. And I just have to keep doing it until it works. There's a curve, and then that's not too bad. That's not too bad. So then we'll go through and take the micron. Any pen will do, really, if you're doing the drawing. And we'll just kind of finish the lines. And a lot of times not connecting lines is just so whimsical. I don't know any other word for it. And then it's always good to just add some little lines in here. And those little lines imply the curve of the little cup. And then I usually add like weight is what I would call it at the bottom of the cup. Little darker lines at the bottom. It adds weight and it gives it some little stationary effect. And then I like to place the cup on something and give it a little background. And it's just a very sketchy little sketch marks. And that's kind of like about all you need. And then let's make a muffin. I have a muffin up here, but you have to proportion out kind of the frosting in the cup, whether it's a muffin or a cupcake. And usually you just kind of I start at the bottom, and then I just say what kind of a cupcake do I want? Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. And I don't usually put the top because I'm going to put the frosting on. This is just one way of doing it. It's just a very rich, high calorie. And then a few little lines here. You could do straight lines too if you want. And then again, weight, put a little weight at the bottom. And then you pretty much have your little cup, and you just kind of use your pen. And these are so fun to just watercolor in with pinks and various colors, pastels. And then of course, you're not always gonna, the nice thing about these micron pens is any pencil lines that show, it's not a problem. You can immediately start erasing your lines after you have drawn. And what I like, if you don't have drawing pencil erasers, you like them fairly new, or they just get hard and smudge your work. These are just from Walmart, little pencil tops. But there's some pencil marks here, and I can erase over the micron pen, and there's no smudging. There's some lines on the sun. Comes off real easy. So that's just a few pointers, and we'll do some more videos on making some of these things and kind of doing little dotted line outlines to see what it is you want. Does it look the way you like it, and is it proportioned to whatever you're putting it on? Because if you're making like a little gift tag, it has to be all sized down. And if you use this method, you can size it down to that size, or you can expand it and make it a little bit bigger. Plus, you don't have to depend on any kind of a form to create the circle. You can just do it yourself, or the acorn. And I just practice doing these. Like in this book, I go through Pinterest and I just do pictures of things and practice cups. These are aesthetic type pictures, drawing animals. And I put them in here in pencil, and then I will put them in my watercolor book and then watercolor them, the bunnies and the pigs and things like that. And so, like, this is some of the stuff I've done. And this is kind of my template book. I actually call it my template watercolor book. And these are things that I like well enough to replicate. So these are my references. Practicing flowers. And these are cute on tags. These are darling on tags. And you could put any word there. It doesn't have to say milk. And some of these I like, some I don't. Some things work better than others. This is just a white pen. Didn't work great, but I know not to do that. Believe it or not, when you go through this, you do remember what you did and how you did it. So if you don't like it, you can change. There's an act to doing trees. Been working on that. This is, I love lighthouses, but this one is too dark, way too dark. I learned that doesn't look like a lighthouse at all. They need to be light, white, and bright and seen. I tried this, and I think really, the yellow probably should be white. I wanted to color everything in, but lighthouses have a lot of white. And then we're back to the little llama and the whale, and these are just little whimsical drawings that I do, and if I need a whale, I'll be able to replicate it because I made one. And I'll remember how I made it. And this is another way to do the little swirls of a cone. A little fox, banana, simple little things. And I think of usually like birthday cards and things like this, drawing a tea bag, the three-dimensional look. And this little bird here is the simplest little bird in the world, and he is so cute. And it's just the colors, but it's so simple. But again, you have to get kind of, if you want a round bird, then you have to kind of sketch out the circle. And I was able to do that with the balloon and all of that. The sun as well. You have to get that right arc of the sun. And here's another teacup. And And then you saw these, working on little mouse. This is a good example too of the round head, round body, and then the ears. You have to get that you have to elongate more of an egg shape, and you have to sketch that out too, but you just don't do it first time. I find that if you use the little pencil method, then it's much better. So there's just a few tips and tricks you might just want to practice, usually at night when we're watching a movie or something. I try to replicate pictures, and then this is my pencil reference book. And then the next day when I have time, if I want to, or whenever, I try to put it in my watercolor book. And then I have all these references for cards, for tags, all sorts of things. So if you give it a try, let me know. Let me know how it's going. Thanks for stopping by.